Hey there, it is Melanie back with another heavy metallurgy review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Fuming Mouth album, Last Day of Sun. This came out on November 3rd on Nuclear Blast Records. They are a four-piece out of Massachusetts, and this is their second full-length album. Their first full-length, The Grand Descent, came out back in 2019. I was a pretty big fan of that album. I enjoyed it. However, I've found that I haven't listened to it nearly as much since it's come out. It is more of a hardcore-sounding album, which is a genre that I typically don't really dip my toes too much into. I'm not too well versed in it. I don't consider myself a connoisseur of hardcore music whatsoever. But I did really enjoy that album. This album, I knew it was coming out, but I didn't really keep up too much with any of what it sounded like. I didn't listen to the single that came out. I had really no idea when it was going to be coming out. But when I got the promo sent to me, I finally sat down and listened to it the day that it released. And I am shocked at how much I like this album. I will be honest with you, I didn't like it the first time around. I liked a couple songs here and there. And it became an acquired sound for me that day. It might have just been my mood at the moment. But I went into the weekend. I listened to it several times over the weekend. And then now we are here where I've probably listened to it about 8 times now. And there are a lot of things I want to call out and talk about this album. Before I get started into the music, I wanted to mention that the artwork has a bit of a backstory that kind of tugs a little bit at the heartstrings. Marois Lewandowski was their artist for The Grand Descent. Fantastic album artwork, as always. He is an icon in the scene of metal. He has done several iconic album covers. He was in the middle of working on the new album cover for this album, and unfortunately he passed away. So they did recruit Stefan Todorovic, who crafted like an evocative album cover. It depicts a very 24 hours like dystopian end of the world type of scene. It's got sandy storms, smoky buildings. All in all, since it's a concept album, it goes really, really well. And it turned out to be a really awesome album artwork. So just wanted to call that. I think it's an interesting story that really plays a good role in regards to this album. The other note that I wanted to call out is that Kurt Ballou from Converge also did the production for this. It sounds fantastic, and in general, with the type of music that this is, I think the production sounds great, and it goes really well with how they've mixed everything. So no issues on that whatsoever. Another backstory is, if you're not familiar, Mark, the vocalist and the guitarist in this band, just recently overcame a battle with a acute form of leukemia. I don't know the official name there, but it's pretty life-threatening. That alone is a fantastic backstory to understand, because that definitely plays a role with this album. This is very much the album that I'm going to declare the F Cancer We Survived album. So that essentially got me going when I realized that backstory. I will be 100% transparent. Knowing these few things, I think that this album became a very personal connection album for me. 8 years ago, I lost my best friend to brain cancer, and I witnessed everything that she had to go through in terms of the cancer treatments and the surgery. She's had several brain surgeries to try to remove the tumor. So that story alone has really connected and resonated with me. So really, happy that Mark was able to overcome this. And just, this is, I feel like, a badge of honor right there. Just a big F you to cancer, this album. So that really hit the heartstrings, really tugged a little bit there, and I made a personal connection with that. So all of that aside, you can put the Kleenexes away. Let's talk about the music. This is very much a very death metal, crusty sounding album. They've dropped a lot of that hardcore sound from their last album, and I personally like it more. Again, like I said, the hardcore sound is not really my thing. I don't consider myself really well immersed into it. It's a very hit or miss thing for me. So I personally really like what they've done with this album in terms of that sound. At times there's thrashy elements, and there's even a little bit of a doomy element on this album as well. They incorporated all these different types of metal genres, and it goes well. Mark's vocals are a true standout to me on this album. Now, I would be honest with you, at first, the first couple of songs I heard for the first time, I wasn't a huge fan, but after listening to it over a couple of times, his vocals are just really raspy and heavy, and it goes really well with the overall theme of this album, and they sound phenomenal. They ended up being the highlight of this album for me, outside of the fantastic drumming and just the overall breakdowns and heaviness of the HM2 guitars. His vocals are spectacular. So that is a huge highlight of mine, and they're emotive and they're just very emotional, and they go really well with all of the songs on this album. Now, the opening track, Out of Time, is by far one of the bigger highlights of this album. I feel like this is the one that everybody has been talking about within other reviews and other YouTuber reviews. It's heavy. It really gets you going when he just screams, "I am out of time." Like, you are just like, oh, when you hear that. It's a fantastic song. It's heavy HM2 guitars, chunky, snappy snare. It is by far one of the best songs on this album.
I am out of time.
Forgot to note, it's 12 songs, 45 minutes long. I think that's a perfect amount. I don't have any issues with the length of this album, so that's not deterring me whatsoever. The second song, Respect and Blasphemy, another solid song. This is a 1-2 punch of the album. It's just ferocious, HM2, crust punky song. It reminded me a little bit of Gate Creeper, I'm not going to lie, but I love the riff at the end of this song. It made my head bob and dance around. Fantastic song. The next song, the third song, The Silence Beyond Life. This is a chunky guitar riff on this song. Mark's vocals are just, like I said, harsh and emotive on this. He has a big range in this song in terms of the high raspy screams, the low gutturals, and then clean vocals, which I thought I was not going to like too much because I don't always love clean vocals on metal albums. I did start to feel like this might be a little bit more of a metalcore sounding song when those clean vocals kicked in, but after listening to it and just letting the song play out, it is heavy, it works, his cleans sound phenomenal, and it just ended up being one of my favorite tracks on the album. The next song, The Sign of Pain. This is, again, another fantastic song. I don't think that it's a filler song whatsoever. Halfway through the song, there's an amazing guitar solo with the drum track with him. It just goes so well together. It's so good. This is one of the more hardcore crust punky songs on the album. But again, I absolutely love this song. The drums on it are spectacular, and there is a stank face breakdown at the end, or if you're just not doing this, I don't know what are you doing? Like, pay attention to the song, because how can you not do that when you hear that? It's a great song. The next song is another one of my favorite songs, Leaving Euphoria. Now, it is a creepy sounding song. It's not heavy whatsoever. It's just got a very somber, creepy sound to it. Clean style of singing. And it's a very good, I guess you could say, break from the previous songs. It gives you a little bit of a break from the sonically abusing HM2 sound. And it reminded me a bit of a crossover of Alice in Chains and Nirvana. So I really like that they threw this in there. I think that it really created some more of a variance on this album, where you're not just getting brutally assaulted the whole time. You've got this little bit slower, creepier sound. So it's a great song. Again, another one of my favorites on the track. Next is I Will Find You. There's an awesome guitar solo that starts out this song. Just more HM2 assault here. It's one of the shorter songs on the album, but it's good, short, sweet, has a great guitar solo. Next is a little bit of a transitional song. It's only 54 minutes, my God, 54 seconds long. Disgusterlude. It's just a heavy, disgusting 54-second long track. It's awesome. I like it. I'm glad they put it in there. Next is probably my second favorite song on this album. And this is simply just because this is Mark's song of saying F cancer. It is essentially the F cancer song, He Survived. It has a chorus of fight back, kill the disease, stand up, kill the disease. And then it closes with I'll kill it before it kills me. It's a ferocious death metal song. It's very that empathetic F cancer theme. And it is arguably one of the best tracks on this album. It's definitely one of those songs where it's like, you don't know how much longer you have left on this planet. So live it, seize the day. And it's a very celebratory track in my opinion. And it's emotional, and it really, like I said, I got that personal connection to it. So it's a great song, and I'm really glad that they included that on here. And I think that, how can you not love that story, especially with just all the heartbreak that cancer brings to people. Next, followed up by that, which I've said, like, what could possibly follow up this song? We could even have Kill Disease be the end of the album at this point. But Last Day of Sun, unfortunately, this probably was maybe my least favorite track on the album. If I had to say, like, if I had a least favorite track, it's definitely this one. This one felt more of like a filler. If I had to say that, I mean, if I had to pick a song that maybe they could cut out of the album, I would be okay if they cut this out of the album. It's a little bit of a repetitive song. I mean, it's heavy. It's not a horrible song, but it just doesn't stand out as much, and it didn't really do much for me like all of the other songs before it. So I would have been happy if they cut this out. That is probably the one negative thing that I'm going to say about this album. It might grow on me over time, but wasn't a big fan of that song whatsoever. Next is R.I.P. Rest in Piss, and this is just a fun, brutal-ass song. It's really good. A little bit cheesy just in terms of he screams rest in piss in it. But this is, I mean, how do you not love that? It's heavy. It's a good song. I'm glad they kept it on here. It's angry, and I think it fits with the overall theme of the album. So, but it's one of the more goofier songs on the album. But I'm not going to fault it too much because it got me going. I blasted it, and I probably scared the crap out of my neighbors. The next one is Brutal Practices. This is another heavy, chunky HM2 song. Continues here with a breakdown that is simply phenomenal, and I was like, yes, because I really liked what he says. F this place and everyone in it. We've all had those days where we felt that way. And thinking about how I'm going to be seeing them at the end of the month, I hope they play this song because that's going to be awesome live. And then finally, we're ending the album with Postfigurement. This is the final track. It's longer. It's 5 minutes and 31 seconds. Has the clean vocals again on here. They're a little bit more off into the distant sounding. But overall, I think Mark's vocals again are the highlight of this song. And it's a good way to end the album. I personally think that the album probably could have ended with Kill the Disease, but I'm glad that they ended, they added these additional songs in here because they ended up being some of the better songs on the album for sure. But this is a very good ending track, and the album is over, and you go through an emotional roller coaster after listening to this album. So to end this review, I was pleasantly surprised at how much I love this album. I try to pick albums where I don't think that I'll actually love them and try to be critical of them. The one thing that I will call out is that I do think for some people, Mark's vocals may be an acquired taste. If you're just mostly listening to the more gurgling, guttural style of death metal. However, for me, it clicked after the second full listen through. I think that emotional connection here that I have with this album definitely is playing a part for me. So it's probably more of a biased feeling while listening to this. However, there are a lot of things on this album that just get stuck in my head. I find that I want to listen to this over and over again, and it's probably going to be one of my favorite albums to come out this year. So if you're looking for something a little bit different that probably is not necessarily within your playlist that you normally would listen to, I do think that this is a good album to give a shot. For me, like I said, it's not something typically that I would listen to on a daily basis, but I like it. And I think that they created a really good sophomore album, and I'm going to be 100% honest, I like it better than The Grand Descent. So I might be the minority here. I've seen, a lot of reviews and people saying that it's a good album, but it's not great. And I objectively don't agree. I think it's a fantastic album. So surprised that I really like this album. This just goes to show, hey, give things a shot that you don't usually listen to. You might be surprised, and that's exactly what this was. So that is all that I had for today. Thank you guys for viewing, and I will see you in my next review.